Hey, all right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before I get started, as always, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, Wahara Chakodash, which Yahweh, that's the name of the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shai, that's from this world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, is his true name, and the Chakodash, that is the Holy Spirit. And I would like to also give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And salutations to all you brothers out there. And I just want to do a quick lesson that's based on a situation that I actually had over the weekend, where I basically had a customer try to sabotage my situation. Okay, and I did nothing to these people. Okay, I don't even know who actually did it. Okay, but yeah, like I said, I did nothing to these people. I did my job correctly, did it well, and they reported me saying that I was on drugs, according to them. Okay, and that ended up having my account disabled. All right, for 2 days, and messed up my work schedule a little bit, not too much, but it did affect me a little bit. And these people, they're bloodshedders. Okay. Just because they actually try to sabotage, your situation, right? And I'm gonna get that scripture in Sirach, because it says here, in Sirach 34:21, it says, "The bread of the needy is their life. He that defraudeth him thereof is a man of blood. He that taketh away his neighbor's living slayeth him, and he that defraudeth the laborer of his hire is a bloodshedder." And you see, since these individuals, they actually mess with your with your jobs. They get you put on probation, get you fired, whatever the case may be. Because you got certain people, let's say if you got a small business, right, they'll leave like particular reviews on these different websites, and that can actually hurt your business. Now people are afraid to hire you, right? You see, and that affects your money, right? It affects your pockets, and like I said, these people are bloodshedders because of that, because they go out of their way to do these things. Are there times where we can mess up and all that? Yeah, of course. All right, but look, it's not to the point where where these people should have to contact the companies you work for, the different bosses, or like I said, even if you have your own company, they shouldn't be posting these negative reviews, making it seem like you're unreliable. Like I said, you're an alcoholic or on drugs, right? Whatever the case may be. They don't have to get to that level, but they do. Okay, they do these things because they're on such a low vibration that they got to bring you down. You see, because that's what it really comes down to. A lot of these people, they're envious of your spirit. Okay, they're envious of what you have, and what we have is what the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. They sense it, they feel it. Because what did you have that one spirit, that demon say I know Yahweh Shai. I know I believe it was the Apostle Paul, but you I know not. You see, hey, these demons know who we are. All right, and they hop on these people, and then they start doing all these wicked acts. Okay, that can really affect you. Because let's just say, for whatever reason, my company that I work for said, you know what, we believe what this customer said. We're actually going to fire you. Now I'm in a predicament. Okay. Now I'm in a bad situation. Then it actually affects the camp as a whole, because more than likely I would have to talk to the elders of my camp, right, and to see if I can get some funds to to get me by for the time being. And look, we don't got money like that, okay? Especially in these times, it's getting rough out here. You see, So these people, hey man, they gotta pay, for all these, acts, all these, because really it's a crime, man. Because really going back to because really they're a false witness. Let me get that real quick with my situation. These people blatantly lied. Okay, they blatantly lied about about my condition at the job. All right. We can get a bunch of them. There's so many of them, but I'll just get straight to the point in the law. This is Exodus 23:1. And thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thy hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. See, you're supposed to tell the truth. All right, that's it. You can't sit here and alter, what's actually being done. That's wicked. Okay. And see, eventually the Lord's going to deal with these people. Like I was telling the brothers, I pray that this individual has a whole Haman situation. Okay. Right. This person, actually thoroughly thought about what they did, laid a snare and a trap for me. Right. And I hope they fall into that pit that they made. Right. Well, what happened with Haman? He tried to, get Mordecai hung, and he ended up being hanged himself. Right. I pray that happens to this individual. Okay. In some way, form, or fashion. Give me a second here. Excuse me. Not feeling too well either. All right, but here we go. This is Proverbs 21:28. A false witness shall perish, but the man that heareth speaketh consistently. So the main point right there is a false witness shall perish. Okay, they're going to die. They're going to have to deal with what they have done. All right. This is Proverbs 19:9. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. So they're going to eventually have to deal with the judgment of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Okay, and this happens quite often for brothers. All right, whether it be somebody like a coworker doing something at your job, a customer, right, a family member, a neighbor. One of these women you deal with, a lot of them make these false reports. They're a false witness, and they try to get you in some very serious predicaments, man. But the scriptures say what in Galatians 6:7? Be not deceived, right? For the Most High is not mocked. Let me get that real quick. This is Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, and it reads here, be not deceived. The Most High is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So if you're sowing wickedness, okay, and evils, yeah, you're going to have to reap these things. No one gets away with their crimes, so to speak. All right? People have to face the judgment of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. And I really hope whoever lied on me at my job, right, with this customer, I really hope that customer it gets their judgment quickly and terribly too. All right, but let me get this. I think it's Sirach 39. This is Sirach 39:26. It says, the principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing. And these are just the basic necessities of life, okay? And if somebody is messing with you at your job, okay, whatever the situation may be, they're taking these things away from you, okay? They are bloodshedders, like you see in the title. By sabotaging, whatever you have going, that makes them a bloodshedder. Because now these things could possibly be stripped from you, okay? And you see, brothers got, families, Brothers got situations that they got to take care of, and these people don't even think like that. All right, they do these things so they can get a free job done for them, right? They do these things so because a lot of these people are like sadists. They just think it's funny, right? Just to see you in a bad situation, in a bad predicament, right? And like I said, a lot of the reason why they're doing that is because they're envious of what you have. Like I said, first off, we got the spirit of Yahweh Shemel Shai in us. That's what they hate. Then they may see you got some nice things, carnally speaking, right? You maybe have a nice car, a nice house. Hey, maybe you're in shape, you dress well. Hey, these people hate all the time. Okay? Instead of, looking at themselves and trying to improve, they want to, bring you down. And the Lord's going to deal with these individuals, man. They're not going to get away with, all these wicked deeds that they do in this world. And it's only a temporary gain, too. Let's say if they do, have it their way, so to speak, right? It's temporal. It doesn't last. Okay? You see? The Lord eventually it brings them down. Okay? All right? Let me get this. Hopefully I can find it. A situation with Haman. All right? Because like I said, that's all I was thinking about while I was dealing with this situation. Actually, that was the first thing that I thought about for whatever reason. Maybe because I read the book of Esther recently, not too long ago. Let me see if I can find it. And it's just crazy because, this was an Amalekite, man. A top level, Edomite that couldn't stand Mordecai just because he wouldn't bow down to him. And that's what it is with these people. They want you to be, subservient to them. Hey, but the Spirit doesn't allow these things, The Spirit doesn't allow it. Slot, I think it's right here. Yeah, this is Esther 7 and 6. And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. Okay, and then this going into the when we were in the captivity of the Medes and the Persians. Okay, just to give you basically like a little bit of a background on what's going on. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. So basically, and mind you got to remember, Esther's an Israelite, right? She was the king's favorite woman, and he bitched up, man. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to run to Esther to get in her good graces, so she can put in a good word for him. So that's Esau, man. Instead of dealing with accountability, right? He likes to bitch up, and run from it. That's how these people are in this modern day world. They don't want to deal with the repercussions of their actions. These people don't want to be accountable for the things that they do. You see, and the Lord ain't with that, man. The Lord he judges you by all your works. You see, but let me keep reading. It says here. This is Esther 7 and 8 now. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereof Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. You see? All right? Hey, the Lord, put the spirit, okay, on the king to hang, Haman instead of Mordecai, right? Oh, you gotta, know the backstory to this, to what's going on too. Haman at the time was one of the king's favorite servants, But hey, everything reversed, man. You see? Mordecai and the Israelites got mercy, while Haman got the wrath. Okay? You see, that's what the Lord's going to do for us, man. The Lord's going to fight for us. You see? And we just got to have faith in that, no matter what. Okay? But let me get this Psalm 7 real quick. This is the book of Psalms, the 7th chapter. Yeah, here we go. This is Psalm 7. I'll start at 14. This is Psalm 7 and 14, and it reads here, behold, he traveleth with iniquity, and hath conceived mischief, and brought forth falsehood. And that's these, I'll say this, starting off with, Esau, Edom, but it trickles down to these people. They got the same spirit as on them, right? These people, they, they don't want to deal with accountability, right? They want to see you fall. Like I said, these people are actually like sadists out here. They actually enjoy the downfall of somebody. These people are envious. Hey, they're haters. They're liars. They're thieves. Going back to this title, they're what? They're bloodshedders. And they don't necessarily have to kill you. They can sabotage your situation, and that makes them a bloodshedder. That's wicked, man. Let me keep reading. This is Psalm 7 and 15. He made a pit and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealings shall come down upon his own pate. All right, so look, the Lord is going to destroy the wicked for all the things that they do. These people try to set up, like I said, these snares, these traps, these pits for us, and ultimately they're going to fall into it, And you got to remember, look, we're the men of the Lord, man. Yeah, we go through things, all right, because the Lord wants to put us through that, what is that, that spiritual affliction, right? The furnace of adversity, the furnace of affliction, right? As the scriptures talk about in Sirach 2 and also Isaiah, I believe the 47th chapter, I think it is, or 45th, I forget where that one's at. But, it's in those two books, right? And, we got to go through that fire, right? But, hey, these people, they got to deal with this shit that they do too, man. And remember, hey, the Lord, he's always going to fight for us, and he's always going to defend us. You just got to believe in that. All right, but let me actually go up. This is Psalms 7 and 10, straight to the point. Yeah, Psalm 7 and 10. My defense is of the Most High, which saveth the upright in heart. And look, we don't have to, get physical with these people. Now if it happens, it happens. There might be times where you got to defend yourself, whatever the case may be, right? That does occur. But I'm just, I'll say this just in general. Hey, look, we don't got to get carnal with these people. We don't got to lay hands. We don't have to, yell at them. All right. Hey, look, we don't have to, stoop down to their level and try to sabotage them. No, man, let the Lord deal. And look, what Yahweh Shem Shai will do is far worse than what we can do. Just remember that. The scriptures say this. Let me get this real quick. In the book of Romans, it says, what? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, right? You got to remember that at all times, you know? Let the Lord justify you. That's something that that a lot of guys hate dealing with, you know, letting the Lord justify them, having the Lord defend them. You know, a lot of these guys, really, they just don't have faith, all right? Give me 1 second. This is Romans 12 and 19. Well, actually, you know what? Let me go up. This is Romans 12 and 17. Romans 12 and 17, and it reads here, recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. Okay, and look, now of course, you know, first and foremost, this is dealing with, you know, the brotherhood, right? They don't deal, you know, recompense evil for evil. But even, you know, these people in this world, they let them have it, man. Okay, let them have it. They can get these little, you know, carnal W's, right? Let them have it. We'll take these little small L's, which these L's aren't even really losses. They're just lessons, mind you. Because look, we want the big W at the end of the day. See, these people are going to get a big fat ass L. That's what's coming for to them. You know? It said just let the Lord deal. The Lord's going to, you know, justify you. And a lot of times, too, what I've noticed, when the Lord gets you in these situations, you know, you get brought down to a low state, and a lot of times the Lord ends up putting you in a better position afterwards anyways. You know, that's just something that that I've experienced in this truth. A lot of times where you go through, you know, your lowest to lows, so to speak, the Lord ends up giving you a huge increase. A huge increase. It could be, you know, spiritually speaking, right? It could be even carnally. You know, the Lord blesses us, you know, with carnal things too, man. Okay? All right? It happens. You know? So, just trust in Yahweh Shemel Shah. That's what this all comes down to. Right? But let me keep reading. This is Romans 12 and 18. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Okay? So, if it's possible, live peaceably with all men. All right? Now, like I said, sometimes you may have to defend yourself. You may have to get physical. And like I like to tell brothers, hey, just because you get physical with somebody, that doesn't mean it's carnal, okay? Hey, look at the men of old, right? Look at the generations of old. You look at somebody like Abraham, our forefather, right? You look at, you know, King David, you know, Nehemiah, you know, different men of the Lord. Hey, they got physical. You look at Yahweh Shai himself. He got physical, you know, and that's a spiritual thing. Hey, sometimes the Lord wants to use you, right? He wants you to be that tool to execute the judgment. Okay? See? But for the most, I'll say this, but the majority of the time and for the most part, you got to fall back. Take the load. Let the Lord justify you. Let the Lord, okay, fight your battles. Now let me keep reading. This is Romans 12 and 19 now. It says, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. Okay? So don't avenge yourselves. Let Yahweh Shemel Shai, you know, fight for you. Let the Lord, you know, bring our enemies down. All right? And these people, they're not getting away from anything. They're not. I've seen people that have, you know, bothered us on the line, right, for years. And seen them, you know, years later, and they were in the worst condition ever. Okay? Certain brothers have sent curses on particular people at their job that were bothering them, that were, you know, going back to what this lesson is all about, sabotaging them. And some of those people literally, you know, got judged, and the Lord deleted them. All right. Like even a situation, I'll say this for my woman. She had some stuff happen at one of these old jobs that she had. Okay, they ended up putting her in limbo. Didn't fire her, but didn't give her any hours. Messed up our situation, right? And she reported everything, did X, Y, Z things. Months later, the manager that messed her up, right? That got her in that predicament, was fired. She ended up she's being investigated for fraud. The assistant manager ended up getting fired for a low performance. Okay, basically the whole what is it? The whole company itself had a class action lawsuit. All right, that was beautiful. Hearing about that months later. Okay, so hey, just let the Lord fight. For you. Let the Lord, give you the victory. Okay, but that's just something I wanted to talk about real quick. Okay, like I said, these people are bloodshedders just because they sabotage your situation. And remember, they're gonna fall. Okay, they're gonna get their just deserts, as they say. Okay, I'm gonna end this lesson. Hopefully, it was an edifying one. And with that, I'm gonna give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Also, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and salutations to all you brothers out there. Shalom.